Welcome back to Sunrise today. Now let's get another perspective on this matter. And Mark Bayer will lead us through that one. Mark Bayer, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Sam Kargbo is in the studio with us. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me this morning.
Well, it's been an interesting how many weeks now in the Senate. I'm sure you've been following the matters there as they have been proceeding in the Senate. What is your latest reading of this Ethics Committee sit-in, which hosted the Senate President yesterday in conjunction with the importation of a said SUV, and also Senator Dino Melai, who was said not to have a certificate?
Well, I think they needed to do that because it wasn't in their interest to leave those matters hanging. And I think they did well. And if you ask me also, we should also take a cue from that as to how they dealt with others. You had allegations leveled against some of their own members, and they didn't want the matters to lie hanging, and they didn't want to act on the allegations without actually investigating them. But the very same Senate, too, in dealing with Magu, they just acted on allegations without any other instrument or process to go beyond the allegations. They've acted upon them. And if you ask me, your judgment should be based on how you judge yourself.
The Ethics Committee sit-in, you think it was expedient?
I think for their own good. Mind you, they are dealing with matters, for an example, if for anything, Malay was at the forefront of those who said Magu shouldn't be confirmed because he does not have the moral standing to hold the office he was appointed to. And also, you also have discrepancies between the Senate and the customs. And if there are allegations or feelers out there that they are acting in reaction to some sort of discrimination they had in connection with some cars that they import, they needed to clear that, both for the good of the public and for themselves. Because if they didn't do what they did, some of us would have gone with the belief that indeed they were victimizing or reacting directly because they had been, their cars had been impounded. Because the first story was that I think they said the Senate President, a part of the car was impounded, and the second story was that it wasn't impounded, but that it wanted not to pay the full customs duty, but the customs insisted that the full customs duty should be paid. But having had what they had yesterday, they came out very clearly that indeed the car was not imported by him, although they said that it was for the Senate itself, but not directly for the Senate President.
We haven't conducted any poll to know how this has affected public perception. But in your own reading, do you think that this has affected public perception positively, perhaps in favor of the senators involved?
It's difficult to say, but like I said, if you had this sort of perceptions or this sort of issues, for the good of the Senate, I would continue to say they needed to do what they did. Yes, some people will say what they did was incestuous. They needed to have a third body to do the investigation. But their rules allow them to do what they did. You understand? Because it wasn't the full Senate, the entire Senate that was inducted members, and the Ethics Committee has the responsibility to look into such allegations. And if they've done that and they come up with some findings and some conclusions that say otherwise, I think they've done that job. For those who would say, oh, irrespective of your findings, irrespective of the fact that, yes, Dino Malai graduated in 2000 as confirmed by the VC, irrespective of the fact that you deny that you had any relationship with the culture, we think there is something behind it that you didn't tell us. Some people will say you can never really have a smoke without fire. But if you ask me, they did what they were supposed to do, and they should move on.
I'm asking you that, because only today now we're seeing even more headlines. Customs impounds 13 vehicles from Senator. Now, we do not know if this is a sitting senator, if this is an ex-senator, but, you know, do you think that these allegations will continue to, will die, that, you know, senators were acting in some, in some self-interest, as it were, while they were dealing with the customs boss?
You know, there is, for whenever you have an action, you have a reaction. Definitely, this is not the last we're going to see. And the caution for everybody, they say, he who lives in a glass house shouldn't throw stones. Mind you, these are moral issues. My customs service, not just to throw these feelers to the public to spread the rumors. If they have any concrete evidence relating to their dealings with some of these senators, it is in their own good and for the good of the public for them to make those dealings public. Because we must also try to hold them by the standards of their posture, really. If indeed for you to hold a public office, you must be above board, then of course the higher responsibility is for them to be more than averagely above board. Because if you ask me, of all the institutions and the authorities that we're talking about, the impact on the conscience of the nation that the Senate has is over and above all others. So if indeed they want to help us out to go to the direction of having moral and upright public officers or public persons holding public offices, then we must start with them. Now that they've thrown the stones, now that they've called us to look at them and their own activities beyond their veil, it is the responsibility for every one of us there to have a look at them. Whoever has anything that could help the public about who they are and what they are doing behind that facade of trying to give us the picture of being the moral bearers of the nation, let them come out. Let us know these things. But if Dino Malaya had not gone around throwing about himself like, hey, the speaker of the truth, the person who wants to die with the truth, nobody would have gone out to say, hey, I think we have some sort of a doubt about your own certificate. And if you ask me, even though he's rebounded, I could see him in some other post he made, dancing, more or less shaming those his persecutors. I think that is something that we should learn about his person. And
what would that be?
I wouldn't want to go to what I want to say, but some people have asked, Mr. Moralman, from 2000 to date, where have you worked? What have you done for you to have this sort of wealth that you're throwing around? We know the salaries of a senator. We know the salaries of representatives. He's been a member of the House of Rep here. He's now a senator. Beyond that, what has he really done for him to have the sort of wealth that is actually displayed?
So
those questions have come up.
We should even be probing further. Is that what you're saying?
Of course.
Okay.
They've challenged us by their own posturing. They've challenged us to do that. Beyond now, all of us were held by the picture of distinguished gentlemen. You understand? Nobody is talking so much about the House of Representatives because they've conducted themselves in a manner that would not attract this sort of probing. But the Senate has put out itself and is calling us to actually look, what I would say, beyond the facade. You understand?
So we should demand a bit more in that respect.
Definitely.
Some people might say
justification for that. That's justification for that because if for anything they've made that issue, it's resonating by the day. They make it so resounding that you cannot ignore it. For the last 2 or 3 months, everything they've been talking about is about the morality of public officers, the morality of those in the executive arm of government. And they've been using that power to actually make the point that if you don't reach this standard, if you don't pass or reach this threshold or pass this threshold, we will not allow you to occupy a public office. They've also said that, okay, for whatever you are doing, irrespective of the powers as you have, be you customs, your own actions and the policies you should pursue should be one for the good interest of Nigerians. And otherwise, we should also turn our lives to say, oh, Mr. George, let us judge you by our own standards. Let us also see who you are, and what you're doing. You understand? So that we can have a kind of a synergy, so that our own discussion on morality and the morals for public servants would be what? Smooth sailing.
Some people will say that one of the things the Senate is trying to do about this, because the journalists were allowed into that ethics committee hearing, I think they hope to continue today and finalize at the end of the day, is to entrench transparency, to show the Senate as a transparent body. But do you think that this is enough to, put it out there as a body that is transparent?
These are just two incidents. I think they are too light to give that depth you would want me to ascribe to them in terms of what? Transparency. What I am saying, perhaps I'm not saying it in a very intelligent way, is that now that they have made morality, public accountability, an issue, let us start with them, because if for anything, they've shown us that they can use their office to push that through. We can also use our number to push it through them so that...
Mr. Kargbo, I think I understand the point you're making very clearly. Perhaps my question is not coming through as clearly as it should. What I'm saying is, you say now that this is not... These steps are not enough to show the Senate as a transparent body, that Nigerians should demand more. What more do you think the Senate can be doing to put itself out there as a body that is not serving its own interest, but really out there to serve the interest of the Nigerian people? What more should we be demanding for them to show that?
It's focus on their primary duties. You understand? Focus on the primary duties and give less attention to those things that would give us the feeling that it's all just about grandstanding. Yes, the Senate has oversight functions, but the oversight functions should be supportive to the functions of the other arms, not to usurp the functions of the other arms. What they've been doing, to my own judgment, and I have written about that severally, is that they are going beyond bounds. You understand? They are going beyond bounds and hiding behind the pale of oversight functions and being the lawmaker. They've even prided themselves on being the fourth arm of government. What that means, I do not know. But for the good of governance and the good of everybody, let the three arms don't act in silos. Let them pool resources together, because the principle of separation of powers also talks about dependence and support for the other arms of government, and the emphasis on no one arm of government being too overbearing to the extent that even when you combine the other two, they will be less powerful.